The idea of instant manifestation sounds fake to most people for one simple reason: they've been taught that reality moves slowly, that results take time, and that effort is the currency of change. So when someone hears that reality can respond immediately, the mind rejects it as fantasy, but the truth is far more uncomfortable than disbelief. Reality is not slow, it only appears slow when there is resistance. Inside the observer, the quantum field does not operate on human timelines. It does not negotiate with patience, motivation, or discipline. It responds to coherence, and coherence is not something you build over time. It is something that either exists in the present moment or it doesn't. This is where most people get manifestation completely backwards. They believe strength comes from intensity, from wanting harder, from visualizing more, from repeating affirmations with force. But intensity without coherence creates noise, not power, and the field does not respond to noise, it responds to clarity. From a quantum perspective, reality collapses around the most stable signal being emitted, not the loudest one, not the most emotional one, the most stable one. If your desire is mixed with urgency, fear, doubt, or internal pressure, the signal fractures, and fractured signals collapse. Familiar outcomes, not new ones. This is why so many people say they've been manifesting for years without seeing results. They were never weak, they were conflicted. One part of them wanted the outcome. Another part was bracing against disappointment. Another part was trying to control the timing. Another part was afraid of what would change if it actually arrived. The field mirrors that internal disagreement perfectly. Instant response only happens when that disagreement disappears. Neuroscience explains this in a grounded, almost brutal way. The nervous system does not respond to what you want, it responds to what feels safe. If the body is operating in chronic stress, hypervigilance, or survival mode, it will not allow reality to reorganize quickly. It will slow perception, delay action, and filter opportunity, not to punish you but to protect you. So when people say manifestation takes time, what they're really describing is the time it takes for the nervous system to feel safe enough to allow change. Time is not the cause, regulation is. This is why two people can desire the same outcome and experience completely different speeds of manifestation. One is internally relaxed, coherent, and neutral. The other is tense, urgent, and emotionally invested. The field responds to the first almost immediately, while the second experiences delay, detours, or resistance, not because the universe favors one, but because one is not interfering. Instant manifestation is not about forcing reality to obey, it's about removing the internal conditions that block response. When resistance drops, response becomes natural. When emotional noise quiets, coherence sharpens, and when coherence sharpens, probability collapses cleanly. This is the part that feels threatening to the identity built on effort, because it suggests that pushing harder has never been the solution. It suggests that control is not power. It suggests that the fastest way to change reality is to stop fighting it internally. Spiritually, this aligns with what mystics have said for centuries. The moment you stop grasping, things arrive. The moment you stop chasing, alignment appears. But without a scientific framework, this idea sounds vague. Quantum mechanics and neuroscience. Its structure: when the observer stops Oscillating emotionally, the system stabilizes. When the system stabilizes, the field responds without delay, not magically, mechanically. This does not mean you do nothing. It means action emerges from clarity. Instead of urgency, it means desire. Exists without attachment, it means certainty replaces hope, and certainty is silent. The reason instant manifestation feels rare is because true internal silence is rare. Most people are constantly broadcasting mixed signals without realizing it, wanting and doubting at the same time, trusting and controlling at the same time, asking and bracing at the same time. The field can only respond to one signal. This is why the strongest manifestors don't look intense, they look calm, they don't talk much about what they want, they don't convince, they don't wait anxiously. They move when it's obvious, and they pause when it's not. Their power is not in their effort, it's in their lack of resistance. And once you understand this, the idea of reality responding instantly stops sounding mystical. It starts sounding inevitable. The moment you understand why effort slows manifestation, everything you were taught about trying harder begins to collapse, not because effort is useless, but because effort is often a signal of internal misalignment. When you are truly coherent, effort becomes minimal, movement still happens, but it feels frictionless, almost automatic. From the quantum perspective, the field responds to a single thing: signal integrity. If the signal is distorted by emotional interference, the response becomes delayed or fragmented. This is not a moral system. The field is not evaluating whether you deserve something, it is simply responding to the quality of information being emitted. Most people unknowingly weaken their signal by splitting it. They want an outcome, but they are emotionally preparing for disappointment. They desire change, but they are still attached to familiar suffering. They imagine success, but their body remains tense, guarded, and alert. These mixed signals cancel each other out. Neuroscience explains why this happens so consistently. The brain evolved to prioritize survival, not fulfillment. When something new is desired, the brain scans for risk. If the nervous system is not regulated, novelty is interpreted as danger. That interpretation activates stress responses, which immediately pull the system out of coherence. This is why manifestation feels slow during periods of anxiety or pressure. The brain is not allowing reality to reorganize because it does not feel safe enough to let go of prediction. Prediction is how the brain maintains control, and control is how it believes it stays alive. Instant response only becomes possible when prediction relaxes. When the nervous system is regulated, the brain no longer needs to over-anticipate. It stops projecting the past onto the future, and when that projection dissolves, perception opens. You begin to see opportunities you would have filtered out before. You respond differently to the same circumstances. You choose without overthinking. From the outside, this looks like luck. From the inside, it feels obvious. Quantum manifestation does not require you to send something to the universe. You are already transmitting constantly. The question is whether your transmission is clean. Transmission happens when thought, emotion, and bodily state are aligned, not elevated, aligned. This is why calm is such a powerful state. Calm removes interference. Calm stabilizes the signal. Calm tells the field that Nothing needs to be protected against. And when nothing needs to be protected against, reality is free to reorganize. Quickly, many people misunderstand this and assume they need to suppress desire or emotion that is not alignment. Suppression creates tension, and tension creates noise. Alignment allows desire to exist without contraction. You can want something deeply and still be relaxed about its arrival. That combination is rare and incredibly potent. This is also why urgency is the enemy of speed. Urgency implies lack. It implies something is missing now. The field mirrors that state by extending the experience of not yet. The moment urgency dissolves, the signal changes from I don't have to, this is already stable internally. When that shift happens, reality often responds in ways that feel immediate. A message arrives, a conversation opens, a decision resolves itself, not because you forced it, but because the internal state that blocked response is gone. Spiritually, this has always been described as faith. Not blind belief, but embodied certainty, the kind of certainty that doesn't need reassurance, the kind that doesn't scan constantly for signs, the kind that rests. Neuroscience would call this parasympathetic dominance. The body exits fight or flight and enters regulation. In this state, perception broadens, creativity increases, and adaptability improves. All the conditions required for rapid change become available. This is the real secret behind manifestation that feels instant. It is not intensity. It is not repetition. It is not obsession. It is the absence of internal contradiction. When there is nothing inside you pulling in the opposite direction, reality has no resistance to push against. The field doesn't need time to catch up. There is nothing to resolve, and when nothing needs to be resolved, response appears immediate. This is not magic, it is coherence. What most people never realize is that manifestation does not begin in the mind, it begins in the body. The body decides first whether a reality is allowed to happen. The mind only explains it afterward. This is why affirmations fail, visualizations stall, and intentions dissolve when the nervous system is not on board. From a neurological perspective, the nervous system acts as a gatekeeper. It determines whether expansion is safe or threatening. If expansion feels unsafe, the system tightens, muscles tense, breathing shortens, attention narrows, and the brain shifts into prediction mode, scanning for what could go wrong. In that state, manifestation cannot be instant, not because the universe is slow, but because the body is bracing. Quantum coherence requires openness, but a brace system is closed by default. This is why two people can say the same words, hold the same desire, and visualize the same outcome, and yet experience completely different results. One is regulated, the other is guarding. The field responds to the regulated one because their signal is unobstructed. Stress fragments perception. In chronic stress, the brain locks into high beta frequency, thoughts race. Time feels compressed, patience disappears. Everything feels urgent. This state is incompatible with clean signal transmission. The body is signaling something is wrong, even if the mind is trying to imagine something better. The quantum field mirrors that contradiction. Precisely when the nervous system is regulated, the opposite happens. Brain shifts into alpha and theta states, perception widens, creativity increases, the sense of time relaxes. This is not spiritual language, it is measurable brain activity. In these states, the observer stops interfering with probability collapse. This is why manifestation often happens when people stop trying, not because they gave up, but because their system finally relaxed. The body stopped guarding. Signal stabilized. Instant response does not come from pushing intention outward. It comes from removing the internal brake. Most people think resistance is mental doubt, but resistance lives deeper than thought. It lives in posture, breath, muscle tone, and emotional reflex. You can believe something consciously while your body rejects it unconsciously, and the field listens to the body. This is why people can believe in abundance while constantly recreating scarcity. Their nervous system is calibrated to lack. Scarcity feels familiar, expansion feels unsafe. The body resists before the mind even notices. When that calibration changes, manifestation speed changes dramatically. Neuroscience shows that once safety is embodied, behavior reorganizes automatically. You speak differently, you pause instead of rushing, you stop over-explaining. You move when something feels clear instead of forcing motion. These shifts look small, but they completely alter the signal you emit. From a quantum perspective, this is coherence becoming dominant. Thought, emotion, and physiology align. The observer becomes stable, and stability is what allows probability to collapse cleanly. This is why instant manifestation rarely feels emotional. It feels neutral, calm, almost boring. There is no spike of excitement, no desperate hope, no dramatic anticipation, just a quiet certainty that something is already resolved. That neutrality is not apathy. It is integration. Spiritually, this state has been described as knowing, not belief, not faith. Knowing does not vibrate loudly. It does not seek reassurance. It does not scan for signs. It rests. The moment you rest internally, reality stops resisting you. This is also why trying to manifest instantly often backfires. The desire for speed introduces pressure. Pressure tightens the nervous system. Tightening reintroduces delay. The system must feel safe to let reality move quickly. So the paradox becomes clear. The faster you want manifestation, the slower it feels. The more you release the need for speed, the faster response becomes possible. Instant manifestation is not about commanding reality. It is about becoming internally non-resistant. When the body no longer braces against change, the field no longer has to slow down to accommodate fear. This is the real mechanism behind stories that sound miraculous. The miracle is not the outcome. The miracle is regulation, and regulation is learnable. Once you understand that your nervous system is the real interface with the quantum field, everything changes. Manifestation stops being mystical. It becomes physiological, and physiology can be trained. When the body feels safe in the presence of what you desire, reality has no reason to wait. There is a precise internal moment when manifestation shifts from effort to inevitability. It does not arrive with fireworks or emotional highs. It arrives with the disappearance of inner friction. You stop arguing with reality. You stop negotiating with timing. You stop checking whether it's working. And that silence is not emptiness. It is alignment. From a quantum standpoint, this is the moment resistance drops below a critical threshold. The observer is no longer broadcasting conflicting information. Thought, emotion, and bodily state are synchronized. The signal becomes singular, and when the signal is singular, probability collapses without delay. Most people never experience this because they reintroduce resistance the moment things begin to feel quiet. Silence triggers discomfort. Calm feels suspicious. Mind conditioned by years of effort-based identity mistakes. Neutrality for stagnation and urgency for progress, so it interferes again. This interference is subtle. It shows up as checking, as wondering, as tightening the body without realizing it, as mentally rehearsing outcomes. Each of these actions fragments the signal just enough to slow response. Neuroscience explains this beautifully. When the brain senses uncertainty, it seeks control. Control reactivates prediction loops. Prediction loops pull attention back into the past and the moment. Attention is anchored in past-based expectation. The future collapses into familiar form. Instant manifestation requires the opposite. It requires allowing uncertainty without trying to resolve it. When the nervous system remains regulated in uncertainty, the brain stops predicting. When prediction stops, perception opens, and when perception opens, reality reorganizes quickly. This is why the most powerful manifestors don't look intense. They look disengaged from outcome while remaining deeply committed to their internal state. They do not chase signs. They do not rehearse explanations. They do not prepare emotionally for failure. Their body is already living as if the outcome is safe. That safety is the key. The field responds instantly when it receives a signal that does not require protection. Protection implies threat. Threat slows response. Safety accelerates it. Spiritually, this is what surrender actually means, not giving up desire, but releasing internal opposition. Desire remains, intention remains, but the emotional charge around them dissolves, and when charge dissolves, time collapses. This is also the moment where manifestation feels strangely anticlimactic. There is no excitement spike, no rush of relief, just a sense of course, the outcome fits so naturally into your internal state that it barely registers as a win. That lack of emotional reaction confuses people. They expect manifestation to feel dramatic, but drama is a sign of instability. Stability feels quiet. From a neurological perspective, this is parasympathetic dominance. The body is relaxed, breathing is deep, muscle tone is soft, and attention is wide. In this state, the brain integrates information faster, makes clearer decisions, and adapts rapidly. Reality seems to cooperate because you are no longer fighting it. This is why manifestation becomes faster as you care less about the result, not because you stopped wanting it, but because wanting is no longer charged with lack. Wanting becomes preference instead of need. Need is contraction. Preference is openness. The quantum field responds immediately to openness. This is the moment where people say things like, "It happened the moment I stopped trying," or "as soon as I let go, it showed up." Those statements sound mystical, but they are describing a very real internal shift. Resistance fell away. Once resistance is gone, there is nothing left to delay. Response. Reality does not obey force. It responds to coherence, and coherence cannot be rushed. It can only be allowed. When you stop interfering, the field does the rest. There is a paradox. at the core of quantum manifestation, that most people resist hearing at. First, the less you need something to happen, the faster reality reorganizes. To meet you, this sounds counterintuitive because need has been confused with desire, but they are not the same thing energetically, neurologically, or vibrationally. Need is contraction, desire is direction. When you need an outcome, your system is signaling lack, the body tightens, attention narrows, the mind scans for confirmation. Even if you tell yourself you believe, the nervous system is broadcasting urgency, and urgency is interpreted by the field as instability. The quantum field does not respond to instability quickly, it compensates for it. From a quantum perspective, attachment creates interference. The observer is no longer simply observing, they are manipulating probability emotionally. That manipulation introduces noise, and noise slows collapse. This is why the strongest manifestations often are when the desire has softened into acceptance, not resignation, acceptance. The internal state shifts from I need this to feel okay to I am okay, whether this arrives now or later. That shift cleans the signal instantly. Neuroscience mirrors this perfectly. When the brain perceives that something is essential for emotional survival, it activates threat circuitry, cortisol rises, muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow, the system enters protection mode. In that state, perception narrows and flexibility decreases. The brain becomes conservative, it sticks to what it knows. In contrast, when the outcome is no longer tied to emotional survival, the nervous system relaxes, dopamine regulates naturally, the brain opens to novelty, decision becomes fluid. This state allows rapid adaptation, which looks us from the outside like reality suddenly moving faster, but nothing accelerated, resistance dissolved. Spiritually, this is what Neville Goddard meant by assuming the state. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending, you are removing the emotional gap between now and the outcome. There is no longing. In that state, there is quiet ownership. Ownership has no urgency. This is also why people often sabotage manifestation by constantly checking for signs. Checking is attachment, checking is asking reality to reassure you, and reassurance implies doubt. The field responds by maintaining the condition that generates checking. The moment checking stops, something interesting happens, attention returns to the present, the body relaxes, the signal stabilizes, and probability reorganizes with surprising speed. This does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop gripping. Caring without gripping is alignment, gripping without caring is fear. The field distinguishes between the two immediately. From a quantum standpoint, non-inference is the most powerful position an observer can take. When you are no longer emotionally meddling with probability, the system self-organizes optimally. This is why reality seems to snap into place when attachment falls away. This is also why manifestation cannot be forced through discipline alone. Discipline can shape behavior, but it cannot dissolve emotional attachment. In some cases, discipline actually strengthens attachment by reinforcing the belief that effort is required for worthiness. The real work is not doing more, it is wanting less emotionally, not intellectually. When wanting becomes preference instead of necessity, manifestation speed increases naturally. There is no longer a gap between the internal state and the external outcome. And without a gap, there is nothing for time to stretch. This is why people who experience rapid manifestations often say things like, I didn't even care anymore when it happened, or I had already moved on. They didn't move on from the desire, they moved out of attachment. Attachment binds you to delay. Detachment frees probability, and detachment is not coldness, it is trust. Embodied in the nervous system, trust that does not need evidence, trust that does not seek control, trust that allows reality to respond without resistance. When you stop needing reality to obey, it begins to cooperate effortlessly. At some point, it becomes clear that manifestation was never about making reality obey you, it was about becoming the version of yourself that reality can respond to without friction. This realization changes the relationship you have with desire forever. You stop trying to activate things, you stop performing alignment, you stop monitoring results, and in that absence of effort, something locks into place. From a quantum perspective, this is when the observer and the observed are no longer in conflict. There is no internal debate about timing, no emotional bargaining, no mental rehearsal of outcomes. The signal is complete, and because it is complete, it does not need reinforcement. This is why reality feels instant in these moments, not because time speeds up, but because nothing inside you is slowing the response anymore. Neuroscience explains this as integration. The nervous system has accepted the desired state as safe, familiar, and non-threatening. There is no spike of excitement because excitement would indicate instability. There is no rush of relief because relief would imply prior tension. What remains is neutrality, not indifference, but grounded presence. This neutrality is the most misunderstood state. Manifestation, many people interpret it as losing interest, losing faith, or losing motivation. In truth, it is the absence of internal opposition. The body is no longer arguing with the future. And when the body stops arguing, the brain stops predicting failure. At this level, action becomes clean. You move when movement is obvious. You pause when waiting is natural. You do not second-guess intuition, and you do not overthink silence. Decisions feel light. Timing feels precise. Reality feels cooperative, not because it changed, but because you did. Spiritually, this is the state mystics pointed to when they spoke of effortlessness, not because nothing is done, but because nothing unnecessary is done. You are no longer trying to prove alignment, you are living it. This is also where manifestation stops feeling like a tool and starts feeling like a byproduct. You are not using the quantum field, you are interacting with it as a coherent observer, and coherence does not require maintenance, it requires allowance. The challenge at this stage is not creating results but sustaining the state. Old habits may attempt to return, urgency may resurface, the impulse to check, force, or accelerate may appear. These impulses are not failures, they are echoes of the old identity. Awareness allows them to pass without reactivating resistance. This is why stabilization matters more than speed. A manifestation that arrives instantly but destabilizes you will pull you back into delay. Manifestation that arrives from coherence holds. This is the intention behind tools like quantum rebirth, not to teach you how to manifest faster, but to help you release the internal loops that create resistance and destabilize. The frequency where reality responds naturally, and the quantum grimoire exists as a daily companion to that process, grounding awareness into practice so coherence becomes embodied, not theoretical. Both are linked in the pinned comment for those who recognize this phase not as something to chase home, but as something already unfolding. Remember this clearly: reality never needed to be convinced, it only needed you to stop contradicting yourself internally. The moment that contradiction dissolves, response feels instant because nothing is in the way. You do not manifest by force, you manifest by coherence, and once coherence is stable, reality doesn't need to obey, it aligns.